Hello, wanted to give you guys a glimpse into how I train my staff. We do a lot of funeral work here at my shop, and oftentimes it's, kind of easy copy and paste where you're just designing from a picture, and that is typically some of the first ways that I have my designers do some of these sympathy pieces. I feel like it's just easy to get the shape down, but I have an additional way. After I've spent some time showing them the placements, showing them how I build them and letting them sort of follow a picture, you really want to teach them autonomy. And I have a way of doing that that has worked really well for me. So today I'm working with one of my designers who will remain off camera because she is camera shy. But basically the way that I do this, if there's ever a time where I have two standing sprays that are going, on the same day, they don't need to be going to the same service, they don't need to match, anything like that. Just a day when you have two orders for standing sprays. Try this method. So what I like to do is, rather than showing them stem placement by stem placement, in order for them to practice autonomy, is that you break it down into chunks. So what I will do is I will place the two standing spray cages and easels about 3 feet apart, and rather than having them look straight on, I kind of angle them in. That way, when my designer is standing over here at this one, she's better able to view it and make sure that she's having the same size and depth that the first prototype has. So I will start with the greening down piece. She will watch me green it down, and then I'll walk away and do something else and let her work it on her greening down. I don't hover, I don't stand there and judge every little insertion. That can make your designers feel a little too micromanaged. So I do recommend just kind of giving them the smaller chunks. So we'll start there, then after that, we will move on to the line flowers, sort of setting the perimeter, and then doing whatever each designer's focal emphasis flowers. So anything that's a larger mass or form, I will usually place into the heart. What goes in hers will not be what goes in mine, and I will not have her follow the exact same pattern of placing. It's more important that she follows the layering method. So doing the greenery, then the lines, then your focal emphasis area, and then starting to branch out from there with smaller materials to create implied lines and filling in the accent areas. Okay, so we have our two green down standing sprays. It was very easy and fast for Keisha to make an almost identical green down, which is pretty much the way that we start the base of all of ours, is with two different types of greenery that's usually something a little bit more economical, like a leather leaf or a jade. So right now we're just going to talk about line placements. So in her bucket, she has two different types of line flowers. So something that I always like to think about is, if you have let's take one variety here. This is actually one time where I actually prefer pairs over 3, because if you ever have 3 stems, you're going to have an awkward placement. So if you have 3, then you can kind of, if you put 2 here and 1 down at the bottom, it's not going to be weighted the same. So you have an option then of doing, okay, 3 together, and then taking something else linear, 2 to 3, and do it kind of on the mirror diagonal of it. So always be thinking about that when you're pulling your stems, is that I do think it's better to have an even number. So if you don't have, let's say you have money for 5, make it 4. If you don't have money for 6, take it down to 4 and put your money somewhere else. So you can always do sort of a strong implied line down through the middle, and then take a secondary line to do sort of an asymmetrical, or you could take 4 singles and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do 4 of a secondary and do 1, 2, 3, 4. One is going to be a much more symmetrical placement, and the other one is going to be more artful. So, you know, do think about keeping your line flowers in even numbers. We're actually gonna switch. I'm going to work on the one that Keisha greened down, because that will help me gauge the feeling for security and stem depth. So I've got some pink snaps. I've got, let's see, 4 pink snaps and only 2 pink larkspur. So this would provide a little bit of a challenge for me, I think. So I have the option of either doing like 1 and 1 and pairing these with some snaps, but I think I am gonna do something a little bit more artful in mind, because I do have these white dendrobium orchids. I'm gonna find my longest. And I do want these to look pretty full, so, oh, here's that third, okay. Oh, and 4, she did pull me all of these. Okay, well, I've made the decision, I'm gonna stick with what I said I'm gonna do, just to show another alternative. So, kind of bring that second one forward. And then I do like to mirror the bottom, but I always weight the bottom a little bit longer. Straight down the middle. And then, again, just weight that one a little bit longer, and then go to the opposite, bringing it forward a little bit, so that it creates a little bit of depth in between there. Does that look pretty? Okay. Now I've got these. Do tend to push mine on the bottoms in way deeper than I do from the top, just because I don't want them to fall out. And then I've got these 3 orchids, so this is where I think you could wait until the end to put these in, but I'm actually going to put them in now. So if I've got 3, I'm gonna put all 3 on the bottom here. Kind of having them come out of my focal emphasis area as something kind of artful. And then this is where, like I said, if you do have an uneven number, if I have 4 down here and 2 up here, that's now an asymmetrical placement that's weighted correctly. Okay, so Keisha's doing an incredible job here, and what I can tell you we've just discussed are these mums. So I have mums in my mix here, but mine are much smaller, and they're also sort of a moodier blender color, where hers are white and large, so those will become more of a focal emphasis, larger mass bloom when used that way. So she went ahead and started adding some of those in, because this cluster of the white mums is giving the same weight as her cluster of lilies, whereas her carnations here, where I kept mine clustered to make more of a mass weight that could rival sort of my cluster of orchids and lilies, we're using the same flowers, but we're using them in very different ways. So when I use mums, I like to cut out the top, which is the shorter laterals, and keep that as a larger cluster. And then I can drive that deep into the arrangement. and then use the longer stem with fewer smaller laterals out to my sides. So this is where I start really filling in the standing spray. This is also when the placements become less important. You know, having them be symmetrical is not really that important anymore because you've already made your most important placements that kind of stand out the most. So I'm just taking these, dissecting them down. I also want to be sure that I'm coming to my sides here and making sure I have plenty going on this sort of back row. Because nothing's worse than when you look at the side of a standing spray and all the flowers are to the front and there's nothing here on the side view. Mine wanted some touches of lavender. So start kind of bringing that out to the exterior. So I've got some additional lines here. I could break these up a little bit. And at this point, I feel like it's more important that you're balancing the color than it is the actual stems that you're choosing to put in. So I'm just kind of blurring my eyes and I'm looking at, okay, if I've got lavender out here, I need to balance that out so I can put some status in. So this one might have a Montecasino here, this one can have status, but as long as that color is the same, it really starts to, everything's just a little bit more blended. I'm not going to really leave anything out of the middle. Like if I was going to do an intentional halo of all lavender around it, that would be one thing, but I am making sure to bring lavender throughout the whole piece. Continue to step back. Look at it, make sure. I feel like it definitely feels a little empty down on this side. Like this has more lavender going on than over here. I do kind of like the way that it's just sort of an intentional swipe of the lavender, but that does kind of leave me feeling like I need some sort of filler material. So let's do something in a white, maybe like white wax flower. I think would be nice here. You know, our values are the same for these, but it's also really important that our perceived value matches. And so if mine tends to have more like textural material in it, you know, it needs to be as full. Okay. But I would maybe like, yeah, put the, like layer them under here, like a loop and a loop, so it's like coming from the heart of it.
Yeah.